Somewhere right now, someone is receiving the exact same piece of bad news as someone else, and one of them will be destroyed by it, and the other will barely break stride. Same event, same words, same facts, two completely different outcomes. For most of human history, people have explained that gap with luck or temperament or resilience you either have or don't. But a man born into slavery in the 1st century, a man who owned nothing, who could be beaten or sold at another person's whim, who had every conceivable reason to be destroyed by his circumstances, figured out something that explains the gap far more precisely than luck ever could. His name was Epictetus, and the thing he discovered is this: it was never really the event that determined how a person came apart or held together. It was the mindset standing between the event and the person's response to it. Change that mindset, deliberately, permanently, and you change what life is capable of doing to you. Today we are going through 10 of those mindsets, 10 specific mental shifts Epictetus built, tested, and taught until they became the foundation for everything Stoicism became after him. Not abstract ideas, 10 working tools, each one attached to a real situation, a real person, and a real moment from Epictetus's own life, where he had to prove the idea was true under conditions most of us will never face. By the end, you will understand exactly why some people seem unshakable, and you'll have the actual mechanics behind it, not just the observation. If you're new here, this channel is built entirely around ideas like this, old wisdom applied to modern life. Consider subscribing before we start, because we go deep on this every single week. Before the first mindset, one thing needs to be said clearly, because it changes how you hear everything that follows. Epictetus was not a wealthy philosopher, theorizing about hardship from a comfortable study. He was, for the first part of his life, legally owned by another human being. His name, Epictetus, isn't even his real name. It simply means acquired one in Greek. It was likely the name given to him by his owner, the way you might name a possession. That is the starting point of everything he taught. And from inside that starting point, as low and as powerless as a human life could be in the ancient world, Epictetus built a body of teaching so sturdy that it would go on to shape a Roman emperor's private journal a century later, and still be quoted by people today who have never read a word of philosophy in their lives. He built it on a single foundational claim, and everything else in this video branches out from it. Some things are in our control, and others are not. That single sentence is the root of every mindset we're about to walk through. 10 branches, 1 root. Let's start at the beginning, with the branch that everything else grows from. See, as separate what is yours from what never was. Imagine a man named Desmond. He is 44, a contractor in Nashville, and for years he has run his business the way most people accidentally run their lives, treating everything that happens to him as though it belongs to the same category of thing. A client cancels a job, a competitor undercuts his bid, his truck breaks down the morning of a deadline, his teenage son gets suspended from school. In Desmond's mind, all of it lands in the same undifferentiated pile called things going wrong, and he responds to all of it with roughly the same intensity of frustration as though a cancelled contract and his son's suspension require the same emotional response. The exhaustion of living this way finally caught up to him during a particularly brutal month when 4 things went wrong in a single week, and Desmond found himself by Thursday unable to tell which problem actually deserved his energy and which ones he was simply carrying out of habit. Now let's go back to where this entire idea began, to a household on the outskirts of Rome, where a young enslaved man named Epictetus is, by all accounts, doing something unusual for someone in his position. He is thinking carefully and deliberately about the actual boundary of his own power. He cannot control whether his master flies into a rage. He cannot control whether he is beaten, sold, or humiliated. He cannot control the political chaos of Nero's Rome unfolding around him, or later his own banishment when the Emperor Domitian expels all philosophers from the city. What he can control, the only thing in the end he can actually control, is his own judgment about what any of it means. He would later teach this as the first and most important discipline a person could learn. Some things are in our control, and others are not. In our control are opinion, aim, desire, and aversion. Not in our control are body, property, reputation, and command. Here is the first mindset. Before you respond to anything, sort it. Ask one question. Is this actually mine to control, or does it just feel urgent? Desmond's cancelled contract was his to control. His son's suspension was partly his to control, and partly not. His competitor's pricing was never his to control at all. Sorting first, responding second, changes everything about how much of your energy any single event gets to take. Two, sir, your judgment, not the event, is what disturbs you. Now meet a woman named Priscilla. She is 36, a nurse in Baltimore, and for most of her career, she has noticed that the same clinical emergency, a coding patient, a chaotic trauma bay, produces wildly different reactions in different colleagues standing in the exact same room. Some nurses freeze, some nurses become sharper, calmer, more precise than they are on an ordinary day. Priscilla spent years assuming this was simply a fixed trait. Some people are built for pressure, some aren't. Until a mentor of hers, a nurse with 30 years of experience, told her something that reframed the entire question. It's not the emergency, she said. It's the story you're telling yourself about the emergency while it's happening. Now travel with me to the school Epictetus eventually ran, decades later, in the small Greek town of Nicopolis, where wealthy young Romans arrived to sit on hard wooden benches and be quite deliberately dismantled. Epictetus built his entire teaching method around a single relentless distinction, the difference between an event and your judgment about that event. A student would arrive convinced that poverty itself was the source of misery, or that public criticism itself was unbearable, and Epictetus would push back again and again on the same point. It is never the poverty or the criticism itself doing the damage, it is the judgment layered on top of it. He put it in the line that has outlived nearly everything else he ever taught. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of things. Priscilla's mentor was teaching Epictetus's classroom lesson without ever citing him. The nurses who froze weren't experiencing a more severe version of the emergency. They were experiencing an additional layer. This is catastrophic, I am not equipped for this, that the calmer nurses simply weren't adding. Here is the second mindset. When you feel overwhelmed, the emergency is rarely the whole story. Ask what judgment you've quietly stacked on top of it, and whether that judgment is even true. 3. Other people's opinions are borrowed, not binding. Imagine a man named Otis. He is 29, a junior associate at a law firm in Chicago, and for the last 3 years, he has organized much of his daily emotional state around a single question. What does everyone in this office think of me today? A senior partner's neutral expression during a meeting can ruin Otis's entire afternoon. A colleague's slightly cool tone in an email gets replayed in his head for hours. He has built, without ever quite noticing it, an entire internal weather system that is governed almost entirely by other people's passing impressions of him, most of which, if he's honest, probably aren't about him at all. Let's go back to Nicopolis one more time, to a specific kind of student Epictetus saw arrive at his school constantly. Young Romans raised inside a culture obsessed with status, reputation, and the good opinion of powerful people. Epictetus had a particular contempt, born from his own experience as a man once considered legally beneath the opinion of anyone, for how much weight his freeborn students gave to other people's judgments of them. He would remind them bluntly that reputation is not something you actually possess. It lives entirely in someone else's head, subject to someone else's mood, someone else's misunderstanding, someone else's day. He taught it this way: he who has learned to die has unlearned how to be a slave. To know how to die delivers us from all subjection and constraint. That line sounds dramatic applied to Otis's inbox, but the mechanism is identical. Otis had made himself a servant to an audience that wasn't even paying attention because he had confused their passing opinions with facts about his own worth. Here is the third mindset. Someone else's opinion of you is not evidence. It is a fact about their mood, their assumptions, their day, borrowed, temporary, and never actually binding unless you choose to sign for it. 4. Treat obstacles as training, not punishment. Now meet a woman named Ingrid. She is 51, a small business owner in Denver whose bakery nearly collapsed twice in 5 years, once during a citywide construction project that cut off foot traffic for 8 months, and once during a supply shortage that forced her to rebuild her entire ingredient sourcing from scratch in a matter of weeks. For years, Ingrid experienced each crisis as proof that she had chosen the wrong life, evidence that she wasn't cut out for this, that the universe was actively working against her. It took the second crisis and a conversation with a long-time customer who happened to be a therapist for Ingrid to consider a different framing entirely. What if the obstacles weren't punishment? What if they were simply the material she was given to work with? Now let's return one final time in this section to the period of Epictetus's own life, when the Emperor Domitian, threatened by philosophers who kept criticizing his rule, expelled every philosopher from Rome. Epictetus, freed from slavery by this point, but now stripped of his home and his position anyway, had every reason to experience this as catastrophe. Instead, he treated exile the way he had trained himself to treat everything, as raw material rather than verdict. He relocated to Nicopolis and built, from nothing, the school that would eventually train a future Roman emperor's closest philosophical influences. The banishment that was meant to silence him became the exact condition that made his life's most important work possible. He taught his students to hold this posture toward every obstacle they would ever face. Difficulties are things that show a person what they are. Here is the fourth mindset. An obstacle is not a verdict on whether you're on the right path. It's simply the material available to you right now. Ingrid's construction project and her supply shortage weren't proof she'd chosen wrong. They were what she had to work with, and eventually what taught her the most about running her business well. 5. Play your role well regardless of its size. Imagine a man named Reuben. He is 39, and for most of his career as a middle school teacher, he has quietly resented the size of his role, comparing himself to friends in more prestigious, higher-paying careers, and treating his own work as something smaller, less important, barely worth his full effort on the days he felt most discouraged. The shift for Reuben came from an unlikely place. A former student, now in his 30s, who tracked him down years later specifically to tell him that a single offhand comment Reuben made in 7th grade had changed the entire trajectory of his life. Reuben barely remembered saying it. He had been treating his role for years as too small to matter. Epictetus taught his students something specific about this exact trap, using an image that has outlived almost every other metaphor in Stoic philosophy, the idea of life as a play, and each person as an actor assigned a role they did not choose. Remember that you're an actor in a play, the character of which is determined by the author. If short, then in a short one. If long, then in a long one. If it is his pleasure you should enact a poor man, a cripple, a ruler, or a private citizen, see that you act it naturally, for this is your business, to act well the part that is given you. To choose it is another's. Epictetus did not choose slavery. He did not choose exile. He did not choose to be born with a body that, by most accounts, was permanently damaged by an early injury. What he insisted on, relentlessly, was that the size or difficulty of the role assigned to you is irrelevant to whether you play it well. Here is the fifth mindset. You did not choose the size of your role, your circumstances, your career, the particular shape of your life. But how well you play it is entirely, completely yours to determine. 6. Freedom is internal before it is external. Now meet a woman named Talia. She is 43, and for 6 years after a difficult divorce, she believed with total conviction that she would not feel free again until her external circumstances changed, until she had more money, a different living situation, a new relationship to prove she was desirable again. What Talia eventually discovered, well into her 40s, was that each time one of those external conditions finally shifted, a promotion, a new apartment, a new relationship, the feeling of freedom she expected never actually arrived with it. There was always a new condition standing between her and the freedom she was waiting for. Epictetus, who was granted his legal freedom from slavery at some point in his life and continued teaching for decades afterward, understood something crucial about the relationship between legal freedom and actual freedom. Because he had lived personally on both sides of that line, and discovered that the internal experience mattered more than the legal status. No man is free who is not master of himself. He had met free Roman citizens who were, in every way that mattered to him, more enslaved than he had ever been as a legal slave, enslaved to their appetites, their fear of losing status, their inability to tolerate a single uncomfortable feeling without immediately fixing it. And he had built, inside actual bondage, an internal freedom that no external condition had been able to touch. Here is the sixth mindset. Freedom that depends entirely on your circumstances changing is not freedom, it's a hope. Actual freedom is something you build internally, available to you regardless of whether the external condition ever arrives. 7. Want less and fear shrinks with it. Imagine a man named Corbin. He is 47, a successful sales executive in Miami who spent 2 decades acquiring a bigger house, a faster car, a wardrobe that signaled exactly how well he was doing, and discovered somewhere around his mid-40s that each acquisition had come with its own attached fear of losing it. The bigger house came with the fear of the market turning. The faster car came with the fear of it getting damaged or stolen. Corbin realized, sitting in his garage one evening looking at the possessions he'd spent 20 years accumulating, that he hadn't actually built security. He had built an increasingly large and increasingly fragile collection of things he was now afraid of losing. Epictetus's own possessions, by every historical account, were remarkably minimal: a simple house, a mat to sleep on, an iron lamp he used for reading in the evenings after his eyesight had begun to fail. There's a well-known story passed down by later writers that when the lamp was stolen from his home, Epictetus's response was simply to replace it with a plain clay one, reasoning apparently that if a thief was going to keep stealing his lamps, he might as well own the kind that wasn't worth stealing in the first place. He taught his students the principle underneath that entire posture. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Here is the 7th mindset. Every possession, every status marker, every acquisition comes with an attached fear of losing it. Want less deliberately, and you shrink the total surface area of your life that fear has access to. Hold everything borrowed, not owned. Now meet a woman named Celine. She is 58, and the defining tragedy of her 40s was the sudden death of her younger brother in a car accident, a loss that for nearly 2 years afterward she experienced as a kind of ongoing betrayal by the universe, as though something rightfully hers had been stolen. It was years before Celine encountered an idea that didn't erase her grief, but reframed the anger sitting alongside it. The idea that nothing she had ever loved, including her brother, had ever actually been hers to keep in the first place, not because he didn't matter, because nothing living was ever guaranteed, only ever borrowed for however long it lasted. Epictetus taught this directly, using the most ordinary example he could find, something every one of his students, regardless of wealth or status, could immediately understand. Never say of anything, "I have lost it," but instead, "I have given it back." Has your child died? It has been given back. Has your wife died? She has been given back. This teaching is not, and was never meant to be, a demand for emotional numbness. Epictetus was not asking his students to feel nothing. He was asking them to hold what they loved with an honest accounting of its actual terms, borrowed, temporary, never truly owned, so that its eventual loss, however devastating, would not also carry the added weight of feeling like a personal robbery. Here is the 8th mindset. Nothing you love, including the people you love most, was ever actually yours to keep. Holding that truth honestly doesn't make loss painless. It removes the second layer of pain in the sense of being cheated from the first. 9. Let insults land on the roll, not on you. Imagine a man named Marcus, no relation to the emperor, just a 33-year-old software engineer in Seattle who has spent most of his adult life absorbing criticism as though it were a physical injury. A blunt comment from a manager can derail his entire week. An online comment on a project he shared publicly can keep him awake at night, rereading it, constructing elaborate rebuttals he will never actually send. There's a story about Epictetus recorded by his student Arian that speaks directly to exactly this pattern. A man once came to Epictetus specifically to insult him. mocking him publicly, trying deliberately to provoke a reaction in front of a crowd. Epictetus's response, by every account, was almost eerily calm. He simply let the insults pass, without defense, without counterattack, as though the man were throwing something at a target that wasn't actually there to be hit. When asked later how he managed to stay so unmoved, Epictetus offered a teaching that has become one of his most quoted. If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, "He did not know my other faults, or he would not have mentioned these only." The joke inside that line carries a serious point. Epictetus refused to treat an insult as a verdict requiring his defense. He treated it instead as information about the insulter, mildly interesting, occasionally even useful, but never something with the authority to determine his own sense of himself. Here is the 9th mindset. An insult only lands as damage if you agree internally that it's accurate and important. Withhold that agreement and the insult has nowhere left to go. 10. Live the philosophy, don't just discuss it. Finally, there is a man named Harold. He is 66, recently retired after 4 decades as a high school principal, and for most of his life, philosophy was something he read about in his spare time. Interesting, occasionally moving but largely separate from the actual mechanics of how he handled a difficult school board meeting or a devastating personal loss. What changed for Harold in his final working decade was a slow, deliberate decision to stop treating Stoic ideas as things to admire and start treating them as things to actually use, in real meetings, real conflicts, real grief, in real time, rather than only in the quiet hour he spent reading about them each morning. Epictetus was famously, almost aggressively impatient with students who wanted to discuss philosophy without living it. He had little patience for young Romans who could recite his teachings beautifully in the classroom and then fall completely apart the moment an actual ordinary hardship touched their lives. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. That is, in many ways, the mindset that all 9 before it were building toward. Sorting what's in your control, examining your judgments, discounting borrowed opinions, treating obstacles as training, playing your role well, building internal freedom, wanting less, holding everything loosely, and refusing to let insults land. None of it means anything as an idea you admire. It only becomes real the moment it shows up inside an actual, ordinary, difficult Tuesday. Here is the 10th and final mindset. Philosophy that stays in your head is entertainment. Philosophy that shows up in the room when something actually goes wrong is the only kind that was ever worth learning in the first place. We began today with a simple observation that the same event can destroy one person and barely touch another, and that the difference has almost nothing to do with luck. 10 mindsets, all branching from a single root, Epictetus, discovered inside the least free circumstances imaginable. Sort what's actually yours to control from what only feels urgent. Recognize that your judgment about an event, not the event itself, is what disturbs you. Treat other people's opinions as borrowed, never binding. Meet obstacles as training material, not punishment. Play the role you've been given as well as it can be played, regardless of its size. Build freedom internally, so it doesn't depend on your circumstances changing. Want less, so fear has less surface area to work with. Hold everything you love as borrowed, not owned. Let insults land on the roll, not on you, and live all of it, rather than simply admiring it from a comfortable distance. Epictetus, a man who began his life owning nothing, not his body, not his freedom, not even his own name, left behind a single sentence that contains everything we've covered today, compressed into its simplest form. He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. Nothing external ever had the power to affect him that he did not at some point hand over voluntarily. That was true for a man legally owned by another human being 2,000 years ago. It is equally true for you right now, in whatever room you're sitting in. If these 10 mindsets gave you something you can actually use, do 2 things. Subscribe, so the next one finds you, and tell us in the comments which mindset you needed most today. It helps this channel reach the next person who needs exactly what you just heard. Take care of your mind. The world will take care of itself. Until next time.